Welcome to the very first episode of JD's Rock and Roll Heatwave. We're new, we're improved, and this is an entire revitalization of this channel. There's been a need for improvement, for change, for something new, for quite a while. We've needed a little excitement here on this channel, and I feel like the Rock and Roll Heatwave is gonna do just that. Now you might be wondering, what the hell is the Rock and Roll Heatwave? Well, if you've seen my channel in the past, you'll know I love metal, I love rock and roll, I love wrestling, I love video games, movies, cartoons, anime, you know the deal. And you know that I have done multiple reviews on albums, movies, wrestling, all kinds of stuff. I've done video reviews on them and top 10s on all of that. This show is basically all in one. Everybody's going to get the whole deal. We'll be reviewing the newest albums every week here on the show, especially the metal ones, so you'll get your weekly album fix, as well as the famous throwbacks. As you guys know, I used to do Throwback Tuesdays, where I'd review an album or two from the past or talk about a topic from the past. We've also got the whole deal with the countdowns, top 5s, top 10s, you know the deal. We'll be doing movie reviews, TV show reviews, all kinds of stuff in that field. Also in the field of video games and wrestling, you know, WWF, WWE, WCW, ECW. Ooh, yeah. It's basically the all-in-one whole deal. Now, before we get started, I want to quickly address that I will no longer be wearing sunglasses in videos, especially after being destroyed by he who will not be mentioned. I've made the choice not to be the next Cover Killer Nation, although he's a great YouTuber and a great guy, but he's Cover Killer Nation, and I want to have some originality, and I want to focus on being the first JD, and not the next Cover Killer Nation. He's a great guy, a good friend of mine, great person to talk to and stuff, but yeah, in order to be the first JD, I had to stop wearing sunglasses in the videos. Kind of like coming up with my own sort of gimmick. I'm still trying to find that, you know, and hopefully this show will help me do that. Now, to kick off the weekly show, because JD loves good-looking women, I'm going to be giving a shout-out to a beautiful girl every week with either their Twitter or Instagram or YouTube or whatever posted in the description below. And if you're a girl, you can comment if you would like to be featured on any future videos. I do respond to all my comments. I read all my comments. So feel free to comment if you want a shout out. But for our very first episode, I'd love to give a shout out to this beautiful girl right here by the name of Jessie Blush. Now, isn't she the true definition of beauty? Because I definitely think so. You can check out her YouTube channel. She does all kinds of cool videos like makeup tutorials and whatnot. You can check out her Facebook, Twitter, Instagram in the description below. I have provided the links. She does some kind of modeling and stuff. She is an awesome girl with one heck of a bright future and great potential. So if you guys could check her out, that'd be awesome. Alright, we are going to start off with some music. I'm going to kick off the first episode with some reviews of some new releases in the past month or so, mainly in the rock and metal field for this episode, reminding you guys that you can comment below in the comment section if there are any new releases of any genre that you would like to hear a review of, or any kind of throwback topic or throwback albums, or whatever. It'd be great if I got some of your comments and your input. That'd be awesome. I'd love to see some of your comments, so feel free. Now let's kick things off with a new album release that's come out in recent weeks by quite a peculiar band, Cult of Luna, with their album Mariner. Now let's start off with the intro track. The intro track starts off with quite the mellow mood. It's got electronic influences. You've got the guitar layered with the electronic synthesizers and drums to create quite a unique sound. It was a great way to introduce me to the album. For those of you who do not know, an intro track is important to me because it gives me an impression on what this band is about if I haven't heard their stuff before, and what this album is going for, essentially. This track's, like, the first half of the track almost kind of reminds me of Depeche Mode's album Ultra, which is mellow alternative with electronic and rock influences. I mean, maybe it's a slightly too repetitive, but it still sounds awesome up until the second half of the song, where there's a little too much going on. You've got a little too many cooks in the kitchen, and it's kind of an atmospheric metalcore thing. I don't really know how I feel about it. Now, I get what they are going for, and it's cool that they are trying to do something unique and something a little out there, and I can respect that. And I can also say on a positive note that they do a good job at adding elements of emotion into their music. Something you really feel every now and then. The thing is, I just feel like they're being a little too unique, if you know what I mean. They're going for a little too much, and it sounds kind of messy because there's a little bit too much going on. One decent song on the album, though, that I actually kind of liked is Wreck of the SS Needle. The song is dark and unsettling, and I actually kind of like that. The vocals kind of throw me off a bit, but overall it's a decent song. But another song on the album I can say is decent is Approaching Transition, which is one of the longer songs on the album, and it really brings out the mellow, depressing alternative feel in the music that progresses into more of a heavier pace far later in the song. But this song, I felt they had things pretty well put together. There was some really good structure, and you did not get that feeling of too much going on at all, at least within this song. So to conclude this review, this album is not as good as I thought it would be, in my own opinion. I felt that there were too many cooks in the kitchen, as I said before, and there was a little too much going on. But here and there, on a positive note, you'd hear some pretty decent stuff on the album, so I'm not going to knock it entirely. I do like the overall darkness and atmosphere of the album, and I'll give it that much. Now, another album I'd like to talk about is Rob Zombie's latest release, the Electric Warlock Acid Witch Satanic Orgy Celebration Dispenser. Okay, wow. What a title. What a long title. Jeez, man. Couldn't make it long enough. But believe it or not, I have always been a huge Rob Zombie fan, so let's go ahead and dive into this album. At the same time, what can I really say about a Rob Zombie album? He's always able to deliver that perfect mashup of sex, rock and roll, horror, monsters, and, well, of course, metal. Although at times the lyrics are not going to make sense, you don't really care because it's freaking Rob Zombie. He spent a great amount of time working on the album, and the hard work definitely paid off because this is quite a good album. It was definitely worth the wait, for sure. I mean, Zombie was really able to meet the expectations of the fans who have been listening to his work for all of these years. That perfect mix of shock, horror, and comedy with a few samples all put together to create somewhat of an industrial metal style. I'd say one of the catchiest tracks on the album is, well, Everybody's Effin' in a UFO. What a title. It's definitely got a groove to it. It's an interesting track for sure. Again, it's pretty catchy. Another track with some really good guitar work actually from John 5 would have to be In the Age of the Consecrated Vampire, We All Get High, which is quite the unique, hard, and heavy track. Definitely a recommendation on this album. All in all, I have nothing bad to say about this album. It's great. I highly recommend you listen to it, especially if you're a Rob Zombie fan. Now, one thing that has really caught the media waves of rock and roll lately is the whole Axl Rose AC/DC situation. That's right, believe it or not, Guns N' Roses frontman Axl Rose has indeed joined AC/DC. It's been confirmed, and there is actual video footage of him performing with AC/DC on one of their recent shows. Now, let me start off by saying I am not at all a Guns N' Roses fan. If you compare them to majority of the rock and metal bands in the 1980s, they are incredibly overrated in my opinion. Their music is decent at best, but it is not pure greatness or anything close to that. And for the record, let me state that Axl Rose is notorious for being a complete prick, so no one really likes him. The guy treats his fans like crap, and he treats his band members like crap. As far as AC/DC, well, you might as well stick the fork in the toaster at this point. I mean, without Brian Johnson or Bon Scott, both legendary vocalists for the group, the band is going to lose a huge chunk of its fan base, especially with Axl Rose. Because at this point in time, they've built so much with both of those singers. They're so far into their careers. When a band is loved and has a great fan base, and they're so far into their careers, as I said, and they have a distinct sound, but can't really continue anymore, they would still be respected as a band if they just called it quits and retired. But adding Axl Rose, that kind of just tarnishes their legacy. It's not going to sound good. I mean, no one wants to see Axl Rose. It's like an athlete, it's like an athlete who is too old to keep playing and should retire, and would, if he retired, would have a certain level of respect, and he would still have his reputation, but he instead decides to keep on going and is simply a shell of who he once was. It's sort of the same thing. Anyway, this whole thing is a bad idea. I watched the performance of Axl singing with AC/DC, and something just sounds a little off, so, sorry. And, yeah, it's just, you should check it out. You can probably find it on YouTube or whatever. It's pretty interesting. I might even put a link of it in the description below so you can take a look. Now let's end this music segment on a positive note, and I'm going to end it with something quick and simple. My top 5 Black Sabbath songs. Number 5 is War Pigs. Number 4 is God is Dead. Number 3 is Paranoid. Number 2 is Behind the Walls of Sleep. And number 1 is The Wizard. Moving on. Now, as I've said before, I grew up being a huge wrestling fan. I grew up in the middle of the late 90s and early 2000s, in the time of the Attitude Era and the Ruthless Aggression Era. The two greatest eras in the WWE, at least. WCW, not so much. But WCW had its own time of greatness. Wrestling has been in my life since the age of 2 or 3, so I've been a big fan of it. But in recent years, I am not as devoted as I used to be, and I'm going to talk about why. Because this segment on the Rock and Roll Heatwave will discuss various pro wrestling topics, and I'm going to kick things off by explaining why the WWE is not what it once was. I want to start off by saying that I agree with Vince Russo's recent point of view on the current product WWE is giving us. I'm going to be honest, it's nowhere near as good as it was years ago. And I'm going to explain why. And I'm not just saying that because I'm an old school fan. I'm saying that with an honest point of view. And it really hurts to see where the WWE is in this day and age being a wrestling fan, because this is definitely not what I grew up with. First of all, the WWE has lost its casual fan base, and that is a problem. That is one of the main reasons why the ratings are so low. Vince Russo states this and many reasons on why they have lost that casual fan base. And I'm going to elaborate a bit with my own views on why so. One of the biggest issues with WWE's current roster, and don't get me wrong, there are still some really good wrestlers on that roster. But one of the biggest problems is the lack of character build-up and character continuity. A wrestler can't just get over with the fans by having a good match. They have to have a character. They have to make that character convincing. They have to deliver good promos, bring real emotion into that character, and they have to be consistent with that character. These days, you see wrestlers getting beat up one week on Raw, and they come out the next week smiling and laughing. You see someone like Seth Rollins, who's very talented, by the way, but one of his character flaws is that one week he comes out acting cowardly, running away from everyone, but the next week you've got him acting all tough, standing face to face with Dean Ambrose. That's an example that Russo actually used in one of his podcasts. But there is no consistency or continuity. You've got to look back at some of the older episodes of Raw on the WWE Network. Look at what guys like Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Kurt Angle, and Mick Foley were like on a weekly basis. They stuck to their character and they stayed consistent within whatever storyline they were in. And they didn't just have good work in the ring. They could talk, they could cut good promos, and they could deliver really entertaining segments. That is what attracts a casual fan. You know, in the past few years, WWE has made the terrible, terrible mistake of paying attention to what the internet wrestling fans want. And that will definitely drive away the casual wrestling fans and bring down the ratings. The problem here is WWE should not be they should not be catering to these fans. They should be aiming for those casual fans, and they should be aiming to get more fans. Those internet fans, no matter what the WWE does, they're never going to stop watching. If something doesn't go their way, they'll complain, they'll get over it, and they'll keep watching. My point is, you've got them for life. They should be aiming for those casual wrestling fans, like those people who are just flipping the channels, they see wrestling, and they start watching it. And the only way they can do that is bringing back the entertainment aspect. As crazy as this sounds, wrestling isn't just about wrestling. You need those entertaining segments. You need that soap opera element. That's what a casual fan likes to see. During the Attitude Era, ratings were at their absolute highest. You had the 6s, the 7s, and 8s. Because of those entertaining moments that we all love and remember, as well as the good wrestling, as well as the good matches, the good wrestling, the entertainment is just as important. And that is also an important aspect to building characters. We need storylines, we need segments. We need that soap opera element, as I said earlier. And I cannot stress this enough. Monday Night Raw needs to be 2 hours again. 3 hours drags on for way too long. The matches are stretched out even longer. There's too many goddamn commercials. You've got commercials in between matches and after matches. Everything just drags out. That will get your casual viewer to get bored and fed up with the product, and they're going to change the channel, and they'll lose interest in it altogether. Over time, the ratings will obviously drop, like they have, and they really need to change things up. Only then will they get the ratings and the fans that they used to have. Once again, let's end this segment on a high note with my top 5 wrestling matches from the Golden Era, the 80s and a bit of the 90s. Number 5 is Hogan versus Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3. Number 4 is Randy Savage, versus Ricky Steamboat at WrestleMania 3. Number 4 is Hogan and Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 6. Number 2 is Hogan and Randy Savage at WrestleMania 5. And number 1 is Randy Savage and Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 7. Moving forward. Now, this part of the show, we usually like to go ahead and talk about another thing I'm really big on, movies. Believe it or not, I love movies. So, on this episode, I'm going to talk about a movie I recently saw called Unfriended. Being a mark for horror movies, especially internet-themed, I could not wait to see this movie. I love the concept of something paranormal, psychotic, or evil happening through the internet. Whether it's social media, the deep or dark web, or some kind of underground networking source, the concept is just brilliant because it's something that could possibly happen if you're not careful enough on the internet. It's a concept that with the plot, you can do so much with that plot or theme. And that's why I was really excited to see this movie. And although it was a fairly decent movie, there were areas where it failed to achieve that level of greatness that a movie with this concept could achieve. Some of the acting was overdone. Little mistakes like the girl screen sharing on her Skype call and never turning off the screen share, lack of continuity. The constant chatting between the girl and her boyfriend, which was it didn't really make a lot of sense, and the unexplained side plots that go on. However, this movie is going for a whole new concept, and it was still a pretty good movie. Hopefully the sequel can fix up some of the minor flaws. But one of the major flaws was, in fact, a part of the plot. I'm not going to be a spoiler for anyone who hasn't seen the movie, but the plot of the film has its moments where things don't make sense. The ending, for example, like, why didn't she just admit it? Like, I don't want to give away too much, but as this new style of a horror movie concept grows, I'm hoping these types of movies will indeed get better in time. Now let's end this segment off with my top 5 sci-fi movies of all time. Number 5 is Alien, the 1979 one. Number 4 is Logan's Run. Number 3 is Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. Number 2 is Blade Runner. And number 1 is 2001: A Space Odyssey. What a great movie. Now on future episodes, there's going to be more topics including video games, TV shows, animes, cartoons, anything. And for future episodes, I'll be doing a Q&A at the end of every episode, so comment any question in the comment section below, and I will answer it on next week's episode. Thank you guys so much for watching the show, and don't forget to check out this awesome girl, Jessie Blush. Her stuff's in the description below, and feel free to check out that clip of Axl Rose singing with AC/DC if you want a good laugh. I'm JD, and this has been the very first episode of the Rock and Roll Heatwave, and good day to you.